morning. We had snow. It snowed last night. Anywho, Shinin. The Shining. I'm working on a presentation for Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. It is my hope that I'm able to coordinate this with Ryder Lee of Raised by Giants, and to basically have this presentation with him as the best guy on The Shining that I now know. And to kind of talk about some of the stuff that I found in there, because I'm going to do something with The Shining that nobody's actually done before, which is to do a esoteric breakdown of The Shining forwards and backwards, right? The documentary film Room 2/3 of the secrets to The Shining can be discovered by watching The Shining forwards and backwards at the same time, right? So I had to find it on Odyssey, but back in the day I watched The Shining forwards and backwards when you could get away with a pirated something on YouTube. YouTube probably spends more of its time going after copyright infringement than it does censored subject matter, this kind of thing. But anyway, so I'm using an account on Odyssey to track on it, and it plays the audio forwards and backwards too, right? So basically the backwards portion of it is always running transparently superimposed on the top at the correct timestamp, and then as the movie goes, certain things line up in really wild ways. Everything from like what is happening during like a panel transition, right? One that's incredibly funny in the very beginning is the interview, right? So in the forwards running of the film, where he's entering for the interview, in the transposition running backwards, Jack is a raving lunatic swinging an axe, completely incoherent, and you're listening to him like you're listening to him mumble backwards, like he's mumbling the Minotaur has fully taken over in the. He's all beast and no man at this point. The man has been destroyed. The man's been dead since he killed Chef, right? So he's just right, just like this, right? And like the more I've watched this film, the more it's really upset me on a deep level, because I see exactly if you really pay attention, the psych profile of Jack Torrance is right in front of me. Like, all the little things, it all makes perfect sense, and you can basically tell that all of it's kind of been there, right? All of it's kind of been there, right? And the film, when you run it backwards, has all these crazy moments where you're watching, because, all right, the halfway point of the film is also the halfway point of the psyche in this movie, right? So there's the threshold that you cross, and the threshold that you cross is fucking sick, because the very center of the film is when the chef, I forget the chef's name off the top of my head. I'm like this movie doesn't have you processing character names for me, right? Um, so, is right when the Shining is happening, the emergency call, right? This is when Danny is shining out to reach the chef, right? Because he's scared. You know, that there are just, they're a little strange that, like, there are little things that are interesting going on that are not relevant to that one stream of consciousness I just had right there. So anyway, because this film has got multiple layers that I think a lot of these multiple layers are just organically there, right? Because there's the character of the hotel itself implies all of the things that it implies. Just everything, the way the film plays on your psyche, you know, if the environment that they're putting Jack Torrance in is psychically driving him to murder his family, that psychic driving is coming from forces that are actually already there, because there's this underlying pretense in Jack's character of failure. He thinks he's a failure. That's what it is, right? He thinks he's a failure, and he went into a shutdown of writer's block, literal writer's block, right? And his writer's block put him through suppressed, unconscious projections that it is his family distracting him from his work, right? And that's how they psychically drove him to kill people. It's that, like, they got him to dismiss all the decisions he ever made after he wanted to be a writer, right? After, you know, he wanted to be a writer, and then he falls in love with a woman to have a family, and somehow he couldn't reconcile being a writer and being a father. And this is his underlying narrative throughout the whole fucking film, right? You know, and then he's projecting both his rage at his wife for apparently not being a good enough mother to let him be a writer, thinking that that's all he has to do, otherwise he's fine as a father. It's all in there, right? It's all it's making the implication that you take a man of this profile, you isolate, not any man, right? People will say, oh, you take any man, you isolate. No. There's this whole psych profile here, right? I mean, I could be scared because I didn't make decisions like getting married and all that stuff, right? But, you know, I struggle, like, sometimes, I don't know, like if I put out something on Zerleth Shreds, my music thing, you know, these little scratch tracks, I try not to make much of it, right? But, like, Jack doesn't even write anything. He writes one sentence, probably his idea for the first words of his book, and then just thought that if I keep writing that over and over again, maybe it'll actually turn into a thought beyond it, right? And so all it was what he was. He was a guy who didn't want to have a dull life, and so he would play to stop the boredom, and he would let his own sense of play distract him from work, right? This is why, like, you know, like, you know, one can say, if your dream is to be a musician, like, you know, my silly dream at my age is, does that mean I have to stop doing all this shit? What am I supposed to stop doing, right? Do I go off, Like, do one day I snap and I kill my coworkers because they're getting in the way of my success? Right? No, we live in a society. But if you were separated from the society and you still couldn't do it, and you still can't point the finger at yourself, you're gonna kill innocent people around you because of your own fucking problems. Right? You know, it's a story about this animal within that is being deliberately provoked by the forces up in Boulder, or whatever they say, or whichever fucking city that everybody is randomly talking about. These people that are common to Jack and to the JFK looking motherfucker. The one could almost say President Trump looking motherfucker, who is in the main office. So there are so many goddamn significances. I just finished getting through about the first half of the film this way, meaning I've seen the whole film forwards and backwards halfway, right? So from this point onwards, I'm going to be seeing everything that I've seen already, but I'd be hearing it forwards and looking for significance that I then point out in my footnotes. Like, where it lines up on this side, somebody said this at this particular time that it lines up in a similar manner on this side. It might be off by like 10 seconds, the other significant matter, but it's all happening because those two scenes are roughly in accord. So I'm pretty excited about this. I'm nearly done collecting my slides. Once I've done collecting my slides, I just have to put myself in the right mindset, make my coordination with Ryder Lee, and set up the live stream, and go through the presentation and show him all my findings, and then compare notes, and that'll be fucking fun. It'll be an epic show. Alright, so I wanted to share that with you guys. Because otherwise everything's just kind of chill. Literally. Things have been very cold. With or without, like, enough layers to keep me warm to be downstairs, it's just uncomfortable because it's a little chilly for me to do the work the way I normally do. So I've kind of found myself occupying my time away from the main computer and mostly being on my phone if I'm online while I'm handling matters in the upstairs part of the house that you don't see very often. Right? So, you know, that's just kind of akin to all the other kind of input that I give myself all day while running all this shit. You know, otherwise, I'm looking at the world, and you know, feeling the vibe check on, you know, day to day, you know, and feeling out what comes off as tremendously different or not, because, yeah, you know, I think the energy now feels a lot different than it did a week ago. I think a big thing for all of us kind of sitting in this situation is, as time goes by in the world, we're going through kind of this awesome process of here's the idea I wanted for how, you know, this institution in the government works, right? You know, you got a guy in charge who's changing all these rules that is affecting everybody's lives in some way, shape, or form who are connected to the system. it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of it's threading the needle in a certain kind of way, right? You have I don't even know if I used that term yesterday while doing a reading under completely different context, but the point is that you're kind of doing a delicate operation between two sides of an ideological point that are also restricted by certain laws on the books that limit the manner in which you can manipulate a thing, right? As well as perhaps pressing it, because the reason why we do things like challenge a Supreme Court ruling is because context can change, and then an evaluation by the court can, now this is a clearer to the current era understanding of things. We have to come to a determination, and that determination has to be in accord with other precedents, because you're trying to find its cohesion within the whole properly in order to do the things that the Constitution is designed to do in its retro causalities, I guess. So he is putting an end to bad policy, but also making sure that there isn't a discrimination going in the other direction, right? He doesn't, right now we're not looking at decisions that are made on a zero-sum game of making sure to exclude somebody, right? You see, we were dealing with certain weird exclusionaries for a long time. The criticism of Don't Ask, Don't Tell was not to protect the military from becoming what it became under the Biden administration, with a tranny commander in the highest office under the president, right? That wasn't the bit with this with this program. Don't Ask, Don't Tell was there as a bandage to the pre-existing condition that we're discriminating against you without looking at your personal individual qualities and abilities, right? Which was an issue if, say, you were a woman who wanted to enter the military and not for Don't Ask, Don't Tell, because that was about sexuality, because you can't hide that you're a man or a woman like that under these conditions. But other aspects of these hiring practices were just at the point of, it's not, look at me, I'm a woman who can achieve these standards that are rarely outside of men, because these are the standards necessary for this job, right? Like you were trying to get into the office, maybe. Or maybe you were really good at one particular talent, like sniper, but you really didn't hold up as a soldier in other manners that a sniper must. So DEI is putting you in there. You're a great sniper, but you failed X, Y, and Z tests. And then somebody sits there and says, yeah, but that's not fair, I'm a woman, right? And then, depending on the context of them making that fucking statement, because a lot of people through poor education were just conditioned to use that argument as a legal defense, because they weren't told that that's not how it's working on the back end. And then they put themselves in a situation. And I'm not even saying that that's what happened with, let's say, whatever the story of the pilots are in these various crashes that are part of a DEI conversation, right? needing to continue to make the argument while in the process of the thing itself, right? And to show you, like, because what Trump didn't do with his executive order is ban a woman or somebody on the gender spectrum from joining, right? And all I'm saying is that it's a binary spectrum. There are two genders, and not everybody is all the way one or the other. You just usually see people in the absolute extremes, and at the end of the day, men have nipples without mammary glands. Shut the fuck up, okay? So there's a tiny bit of lady going on somewhere with dudes as an inherency. As an inherently, there it is. Man nipples, what the fuck, right? So, as long as men have nipples, the argument is valid. But anyway... Alright, so... the energy is different because time is passing with the conversations, with the things as they are in effect, and there is less distraction in the world, as even the people that hold up the false narrative don't have the same relationship with the media narrative that was feeding them this disposition about the world in the first place, right? And, this has a similar relationship to The Shining in that it's about projection of failure. I am failing, so I am projecting it on society. I'm projecting it on the dependence of my relationship. Anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll catch you later.